Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Guitar Souls podcast. This is episode number 71, I believe.
Yes.
I am one of your hosts, Mr. Levi Clay, and I am here with my good friend, Mr. Mike McLaughlin. How's it going, bud?
Still ill. How are you?
Yeah, it's still tired. Like some things never change. I got out of bed this morning, and my wife was fast asleep because we're recording early-ish. I mean, certainly early for me. So it's like 11 o'clock in the morning. Like, no, thank you. And didn't tie the beard up. So I'm looking at how long and scruffy my beard is, and it's both impressive and horrible at the same time. But you know, such is life. Such is life. Why don't you tell us what's been happening with you?
Oh, you probably don't want to know.
I didn't necessarily just mean your health.
All right, not a lot to be honest, man. Just staying at home and feeling sorry for myself, if I'm totally honest.
Yeah.
Actually need to take Finlay to a birthday party this afternoon outside where there's a bouncy castle, and obviously it's raining. This will be fun.
Oh no! Oh no!
He'll fucking love it, man. He'll have his waterproofs and his fucking welly boots on, and I'll just be standing about miserable for 2 hours. But you know what, man? I don't grudge him at all. Other than that, just getting on with life, man. Feeling sorry for myself, trying to not feel sorry for myself quite as much.
Yeah.
And still learning party can and stuff and tormenting my brain. Also, shout out to Sanjay and Ben for their quarantine pack, both fellow Ormsby artists, and their tab pack, which I opened the first one of Ben's and went, this will be alright, I'm sure I can play this. And then I watched a video of him play it at approximately twice as fast as I can. It's clean as fuck. And I was just like, right, okay, I've decided this is not for me. No, to be fair, there's some really cool licks in there and some great chop building exercises. But that's quite the fucking challenge.
I've been working on my chops too, but totally not guitar playing chops, because I finally sat down and started playing Sekiro. And
Shadows Die Twice.
Mate, that is an astonishingly good game. If I think these kind of third-person action combat games are pretty common in the market now. Be them the Soulsborne style games, or I don't know, like the Arkham games, or even the new Assassin's Creed games. They have a lot of that third-person action combat stuff, or the Shadows of Mordor type stuff. So you play a lot of these, and because of that, you're conditioned to play in a certain way, which is things come at you, dodge, and then take advantage of the new position that you're in. Sekiro is so hard that you don't really want to do that. I started playing the game by being a master of stealth, like running in to encounters, stabbing one person, and then running away until they'd forgotten about me, and coming back, and then just taking them out one at a time. And then someone pointed out to me that, I mean, you can do that, but that'll only get you so far, and you'll never, ever, ever get through the bosses later in the game unless you learn how to play the game. And it's so good because it trains you to play it in a way that you are terrified to do, which is don't be a little bitch. Don't try and run away. Don't try and dodge. Dodging does not work out well for you in that game, because the hitbox is relatively accurate and they have these big swipes. So even when you dodge, you're going to get hit. You have to play that game by facing your enemies head on and just beating them in sword combat. So it's all
twice
about
often
mastering your parrying and perfect timing and you are rewarded for blocking strikes more than you are for attacking. And it's exhilarating because it's just totally different from how you're used to playing. And I like that. I like feeling like I'm becoming a master at something. And props to the guys that made that, because they have made something absolutely incredible. But do you know somebody else that makes something incredible? This show is brought to you by Ormsby Guitars. We want to thank Perry and the guys over at Ormsby for all of their support. It is very much appreciated. For those unfamiliar with Ormsby and what they do, they're wonderful guitars built by Perry out in Australia. And probably what they're most notable for in recent years is actually doing these runs of guitars that are actually built offshore and then brought into Australia for quality control and then sent on out. So if you head on over to ormsbyguitars.com and check out the pre-order section on their website, you can check out some of the upcoming runs, get involved for a very low price, and prepayment plans, payment over a series of months. Great way to get yourself a killer instrument and absolutely killer price. So as always, thank you so much for the support, guys. Check them out and let them know that we sent you. Anyway, on with the show. So, as always, a massive thank you. We would like to extend our appreciation to our good friends over at Ormsby Guitars. Thanks very much, Perry. Thank you very much, guys. Please do go and check them out. They rock, and their instruments rock, and you may enjoy what you find when you go and look at them. So, why don't we talk about some stuff? And let's start the
talk
show.
About something we really enjoy talking about.
Not Gibson.
No, for once.
Yeah.
And TTM as well, that's went quite silent, which I've kind of recognised the last couple of weeks we've not even had anything to say about.
Yeah.
Lance Benedict, who's lower than a snake's belly, has went to the ground like one, ironically.
I'm so glad that you mentioned his name, though, just because you're right. His name needs to be kept in the public consciousness, because when he pops back up, like whack-a-mole, you got to beat him down.
Yep.
Yeah, so good luck, Lance. Anyway, last episode we talked about Chris Taylor Brown from Trapt. I can't even remember why we were talking about Chris Taylor Brown.
The phenomenal pre-sales. Pre-sales.
Yeah, 600 records in his first week.
And he was suing the world because actually it was 4,000 and they hadn't reported it, including places like Google, etc. And he thought it was a conspiracy theory against them, if I remember correctly.
Well, now it's being reported that Chris Taylor Brown actually has less money in his bank account than his band sold albums in their first week. And we're not talking the 4,000, we're talking the 600 that has been reported by actual sources other than the biased one. So, why don't you tell us about this story, Mike?
So the headline reads, and I hate to be reading for Metal Sucks.
I know.
Trapt singer is broke, dodging payments to music video director, which was 2 days ago.
Yeah.
So many things can be said, and certainly have been said in recent months, about Trapt vocalist / mastermind Chris Taylor Brown. That he's a racist, Trump-loving, pro-cop chud, for example, and that he's severely lacking in intelligence. You can now add deadbeat piece of shit to that list. This is probably one of the few times I'll read through Metal Sucks and be like, oh, okay, right, I'm into it. I like the
They're
emotional
very
spin
much
here.
like spearheading the attacks on Chris Taylor Brown, and when you read his Twitter, he knows that Metal Sucks are like the big bully to him, the ones that are really going for him.
Which is only fair, you know what I mean? I think Metal Sucks is like the Guitar Souls minus any sort of journalistic integrity. You know what I mean?
And more pseudonyms.
Yes, very much so. Well, just pseudonyms in general, because we have none.
Yeah.
Anyway, in a new post to the Chris Taylor Brown Facebook haterade group, Trapt official is a joke, which uses our own Axl Rosenberg's crap Photoshop job as its header image. Thanks, dudes. Crap. Travis Livingston, who designed the cover artwork for Trapt's 2 most recent albums and directed the lyric video for Make It Out Alive, a single from the band's new album, alleges that Brown has attempted to dodge payment for a second lyric video. Livingston claims Brown has told him that his social media advertising agency accidentally and conveniently spent $4,000, the exact price of the video, and that as a result he is currently unable to pay for work that has already begun. What's more, Livingston says Brown claims he only had $500 to his name until September. Livingston plans to file a small claim suit against Brown next Monday. And then there is a screenshot of Travis Livingston's post to the Trapt official as a joke page, which reads, and these are Travis's own words: "Hello all. I'm embarrassed to say that I am the guy who did the album art for Trapt's 2 most recent albums and the lyric video for Make It Out Alive. In the process of doing a second video for Tell Me How You Really Feel, and he is trying to dodge payment, saying his social media advertising agency accidentally and conveniently spent $4,000, the price of the video, and he only has $500 to his name until September." Obviously meant to be about Chris Taylor Brown, but they've not named it properly. "I'll be filing a small claims suit on Monday. Just thought this group would enjoy this story."
I looked into him, checked his Facebook out. I was going to send him a message actually, but I imagine because this has been widely reported that his inbox has blown up with people either trying to pat him on the back or get more information. So I didn't want to bother the guy. But just from looking into his profile and who he is, he is legit. Whether or not his claims are legit, of course, are another matter entirely. But there are some updates on this that I'll be able to give you as you get towards the end of the story. So continue.
I think we're essentially at the end, aren't we? So this is just Metal Sucks. I'll continue reading. "So much for the big financial windfall from all those Pandora streams, or those 600 first week copies, in brackets, 4,500, of Trapt's new album. I almost feel bad dunking on the guy at this point, but man, fuck him. You can check out Livingston's effects reel below and give him a follow on Instagram right here." So that was a wee plug for Travis Livingston, which is quite nice of them.
Yeah.
And I also agree with the second last paragraph, which is just, I almost feel bad dunking on the guy at this point, but fuck him.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you're an easy target, but you made yourself an easy target.
Yeah.
So,
and on the note of just finishing that last bit there, I totally get, like, if I wanted to start a YouTube channel where I just sat on camera and read Harry Potter books, I couldn't do that because that would be plagiarism. Sorry, that would be copyright infringement even. It's definitely not plagiarism. In this instance, like when we just take Metal Sucks story and we just read it verbatim, we're essentially like taking away the reason for you to go to Metal Sucks and read it. But having said that, when you actually read Metal Sucks story, people probably will have noticed this when Mike was reading that quote. The quote was just the story was just the quote, but just reworded.
that's just journalism,
yeah,
though.
Yeah, very very little has been done.
Take
here.
basic data and extrapolate something else from it.
Yeah,
that's just it.
And AI can do that now. So yeah.
I mean, quantum computers can do something like 40 million processes in a second. Yeah. So we won't just say computers can do that because it's easy. We'll say computers can do that because computers are fucking cool.
Fair point. So further updates on this. If you check out Chris Taylor Brown's Trapt's Twitter, obviously he takes massive issue with this. This is totally illegitimate, totally not true. The reason that I've not paid this man is that his work wasn't up to standard. What? That's not how it works. That's just not how it works. Especially if this guy has done a bunch of work for you already, clearly his work was up to standard, when he did 2 album covers for you and when he did a lyric video for you. And actually, you can't say that someone's work isn't up to standard when they've not finished the job. Like, it was relatively clear in there that I'm working on a lyric video, so the video's not even finished yet. So for Chris to look at that and say, oh, well, it wasn't up to standard. I mean, you might try and make that argument, yeah, sure, but usually if someone's going to do that, it's because they're trying to look for a way out of having to have that financial obligation, right?
It wasn't up to standard, and conveniently the record label spent $4,000 at the same time.
Yeah.
Okay, Chris.
Yeah.
Seems legit.
That was actually the reason I was going to contact Travis, because ultimately I would like to see screenshots of Chris saying these things. I'm absolutely sure he probably did. But, an actual screenshot.
In the interest of fairness.
Yeah. But yeah, Chris continues to be Chris, right? $500 till September. That's probably all those lawyers that he keeps hiring to sue anyone that makes fun of him.
Constant no win, no fees, and then he constantly has to pay them. You piece of shit.
Yeah. What an absolute clown. Okay, why don't we talk about this ESP? Why don't we talk about our old friends over at Essex Recording Studios? Yeah.
Sure. This one caught me off guard as well, to be fair. So I don't know what your opinion is on this, but over on Reverb, Essex Recording Studios, the guys that bought up all the Megadeth guitars, wasn't it? Are selling an ESP, it's actually an LTD Grinch, owned by Evanescence, and it's in the My Immortal video. This comes with a lot of what looks like kind of not folklore merchandise, that stuff that basically surrounds the ownership of the guitar and proves where it's from. Evanescence albums, which is on CD, there's one on LP, I think, posters, pictures of the guitarist who owned the guitar, signed posters of the band. I think that looks like a certificate of ownership, or potentially even just a receipt for the guitar in the box and stuff. Anyway, a lot of parts to kind of prove where this guitar has come from, and they're only asking £49,999.
Yeah. I considered reaching out to Keith to ask if that was right, because actually if you go through the rest of his store, nothing is even close to that sort of money.
No.
For, fuck it, bigger bands, like there's some of the Mustaine stuff up there, not even close. Like there's Mustaine stuff up there for a couple of $1,000. So
see,
this could be a placeholder price, but still.
the way I see it, just for reading some of the listing, I think the size of the sales of how big Evanescence got and the size of their career, the span of their career versus somebody like Megadeth, who's like a worldwide name, but it's like hardcore fans, versus Evanescence, who were pretty much mainstream with I think My Immortal actually was pretty mainstream. It was kind of when Kerrang was overtaking a lot of the mainstream music scene, and like there was this creep out of alternative / metal music into radio stations and stuff. Anyway, I think maybe that's where it's tied in, because the start of the listing says this is the actual grunge guitar owned by Evanescence guitarist John LeCompte, and features in the famous My Immortal music video, a song with over 1 billion streams. That's billion with a B. That's me quoting the listing, and that's, I think, trying to cement the heritage and the justification of the value of this guitar. It's still an LTD.
Yeah, it's still an LTD played by the unimportant guitar player in Evanescence. It's the second guitar player in Evanescence.
The unimportant guitar player, Levi, come on.
Well, it wasn't.
This man is a musician trying to make an earning and trying to make a living, and you're putting him down saying you're unimportant. God's sake. Mate. Sorry, John, if you're listening, which you won't be, just ignore him. He's a bad man.
But Evanescence was Amy Lee and Ben Moody. That was the core of that band. That was who wrote that first album together. And then for whatever reason, he had a tantrum and left the band. And you know that there's validity to what I'm saying. And the reason we know there's validity to what I'm saying is because it says ESP Grinch owned by Evanescence. Why would you not just say owned by John LeCompte?
I mean, with no disrespect, if you said, what's the other guitarist's name? The guy that wrote the album? Ben Moody. If you'd wrote Ben Moody, I'd be like, who the fuck's Ben Moody? Not out of badness, but I doubt very much people who are into Evanescence are like super big on who the members were and who wrote the songs. And it doesn't seem like...
they'd all know Amy Lee.
Oh, of course, but she's the front person. Everybody knows the front person for bands. They don't necessarily know the bassist or the guitarist.
No, sure, but when that band started up, the two of them were very prominent together as being like, this is our thing. And he's the one credited with most of the writing. But,
all right, okay.
But I
didn't know that. I'm not a big Evanescence fan.
I remember buying The Fallen when it came out, the week it came out, actually.
I don't think that was a bad album. Yeah. I think Tourniquet was quite a good track on it, if I remember.
That's a very good track.
I did like My Immortal.
Yeah.
It wasn't a bad album. Like it was pretty listenable, but it's not the kind of thing that I would go back to now and be like, fuck, this was a banger. Yeah. It was kind of its time.
But on what you said there regarding, like, you don't think the average Evanescence fan would know who the bass player is or the guitar player or drummer or whatever, right? I agree with you.
Have they got a fanatical...
No, I agree with you, because they're not that type of band. Sure, they'll have their mega fans, but this has been priced at a kind of cult level of money, and you would think that somebody that would even consider spending £50,000, not even dollars, £50,000 on a guitar like this would probably be in that super fan status and would probably know the name of the guitar player. So
fair,
yeah. Massively overpriced.
Keith, if you're listening, we know you're a friend of the show. Please reach out and give us your opinion and comments on it, man. We'd love to hear your take on it.
Ultimately, I'm not having a go at the guy because he owns it.
No, not at all.
Yeah,
I'd just like to hear from his point of view, because there might be some other background to this guitar that we don't know.
Maybe he's had offers on it in the past for 30, and he's just put. It's on Reverb, so you can make offers. You don't need to just buy it at that price. I don't think it's ever going to get close to that price, but ultimately, could just be a smart bit of marketing, right? We've talked about it, and other people. It was sent to me. Other people have been talking about this. Might be a reason for you to go on the Reverb page and then check out some of the other stuff that he's got going.
The other thing you need to consider is he's got 584 reviews, and they're all 5-star.
Yeah.
I've just looked down the top 5, the last 5 that have been sold, which is a Bernie Rico Jr. Vixen, Hetfield LTD Grinch 150 of 260, Viper SG Baritone, a 6505 that was owned by Matt Tucker, built for my Valentine, the DV8 Mustaine Signature Metallic Silver V, and an ESP Eclipse Crazy Quilt Top EMG Zackwell pickups, MIJ Japan Top, blah blah blah, whatever. But all 5 of those are 5 stars.
Yeah.
So there's no doubt in my mind that Keith knows what he has and what he's selling and what he's doing with the stuff and the value of it. So that's why I'm kind of like,
Yeah.
I mean, if Dave Mustaine's DV8 goes for $4,000 and then he's asking $50,000 for an Evanescence guitar.
I mean, even cooler than that, like he has a Megadeth custom Bubinga DD drum 8-piece drum kit used on the Endgame album and Big Four Sonosphere tour, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's a huge drum kit. It's unbelievably cool, right? And it's £25,000. It's half the price of this guitar, and that is so much fucking cooler than the guitar, to me at least. Yeah.
Aye, I agree with you. If this was like a one-off guitar, maybe I would be like, cool, aye, fair enough.
Yeah.
But it being the LTD Grunge, I mean, I think they are limited edition anyway. They're fairly sought after as far as I know, but I don't imagine John LeCompte owning it makes a big difference for many people, and that's no disrespect to him. None at all.
Yeah.
Just my take on it.
It's also easy to make a claim that it was played on the album, but, you know, do we know that? Do we know it was actually played on the album? Because there's a big difference between what somebody chooses to use out on stage when your band's, you know, record deal's taken off and suddenly every guitar company in the world is like, oh, you're going out and doing these huge tours. Yeah, we'd love to hook you up. But prior to that album coming out, these guys were nothing. They were nobodies. So who knows what they actually used in the studio. Just noticed he also has, you know, like some Judas Priest stuff, some stuff played out on tour with Judas Priest. It's all Andy Sneap stuff rather than, you know, actual Judas Priest members. But still,
he's just the second guitarist, he doesn't matter.
I know, yeah, nobody knows who Andy Sneap is.
You know what the coolest guitar in this full collection is, in my opinion? If you go onto his page, it's genuinely the purple Kirk Hammett.
Yeah, that's right up at the top, isn't it?
Without the Ouija.
Yeah. Just
the signature purple, because it's that to me is just like a beautiful E2, an ESP E2.
Yeah.
The Horizon, I believe, was the original name of that kind of series. It's just a cool finish.
Yeah.
I think it's a cool as fuck guitar. It's something I'd imagine Steph Carpenter would have on a guitar. He probably does.
And
he's got weird pink sparkles.
£1,700.
It's not silly money.
If you're a big Kirk fan, I imagine these guitars are pretty hard to come by. Sure, why not? Yeah. So think the price on the Evanescence is a little bit off base, but everything else, maybe there's something on there that appeals to you.
The only thing I can think, maybe he's added an extra 9 at the end by accident. Maybe it's meant to be $5,000 and it's went up at 50.
This is my thought. To me, that guitar is maybe a $5,000 guitar, but I don't even see it getting 10. So.
I mean, there is a banjo owned by Dave Mustaine that used to write the record "The Blackest Crow" for $15,000.
Well, there we go. Let's do a whip round.
Right, you know what? See, when coronavirus fucks off, you and I need to go down and visit Keith. We need to take him up on that offer, go down for a coffee and play the 12 billion guitars that he owns. Christ.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about this.
Sorry.
The man that plays crowd noises on a drum machine for Sky Sports Football. Just because you posted this up in the group, and this is a really odd one and a strange example of where we are in the world right now.
It caught me off guard when I saw this posted on Facebook, and I was like, you know what, this is quite an interesting thing just to talk about randomly, because I don't imagine a lot of people are aware this is what happens or is happening. I wasn't aware. I thought it might have been just edited afterwards, but for somebody to be doing it the way they are. Anyway, I'll read the story. So this comes from GQ magazine for the 10th of July. Pardon me. Meet the man who plays crowd noise sounds on a drum machine for Sky Sports Football. In 2020, the UK is split among one very clear line: those who watch football with the artificial crowd noise on, and those who prefer the stark, eerie quiet of the near-empty stadium. GQ speaks to Adam Perry, one of the sound engineers who produces the crowd sounds, most of which come from the video game FIFA for Sky Sports. So it's kind of coming full circle here, isn't it? In my mind, I'm like, record the real crowd for a computer game, take the recording of the real crowd from the computer game and how it's been sectioned up for each thing that happens on the park, and then put that in place for when there's real football happening but there aren't any crowds allowed. It's fucking
very
bizarre. Anyway,
very strange. Very strange.
Yeah, I'll read the story. On Wednesday night, when Eddie Nketiah, I'm guessing is how you say that, was shown a red card for Arsenal against Leicester after a reckless studs-up challenge, the reaction in the stadium was understandably muted compared to the usual roar of protest you might expect to hear in the packed Emirates. After the card was brandished by referee Chris Kavanagh, the 21-year-old skulked off while his teammates argued half-heartedly. Due to ongoing coronavirus-related crowd control, there were no fans to light the fire they might have needed to mount a more convincing challenge. Yet, in a tiny windowless studio in Austerley, West London, something magical was happening. Sat at a desk with 3 monitors and several MIDI soundboards, a device with volume controls and buttons that are typically used to helm digital music instruments, sound engineer Adam Perry had a split second to react. He turned up a dial marked "whistles," scribbled in black biro and white stick-on labels, as you see on just about any live soundboard you've ever seen, and tinkered with buttons on a touchpad labelled "Oh." TVs across the country erupted with the sounds of artificial outrage, and viewers barely registered that they were watching a game of football in a dystopian future wherein the Premier League is being played in empty stadiums.
Yeah. Really very, very strange. This whole when you look at TV, sports things on TV now, like the wrestling thing without audiences, it's not the lack of sound that ruins it. It's just what you expect
Like
to
atmosphere.
see. So carry on.
I was just going to say there's a lack of atmosphere, I think. I don't watch football. I'm not massive on it. I don't think you watch football.
No,
You turn your volumes down to cough there.
I did, yeah.
That was good. That was considerate.
I thought that was going to be quite an aggressive cough, so super strange. The thing I have to wonder about this is, how do you even get into a job like this? He must have been working at Sky already doing something, surely.
I'll tell you.
Go on.
So Perry is one of a team of 6 sound engineers who have been asked to go above and beyond their day job in order to improve the football viewing experience in these bizarre circumstances. The New Zealand native normally mixes microphones for presenters and follows the ball around the pitch, sonically speaking via 17 pitch mics during live games. Imagine it being your job to monitor the sound of the football across the pitch as it's kicked back and forth. Long before the date of the restart had been decided, he was invited to participate as an experimental team to work on something dubbed crowd effects. He was soon sent a MIDI keyboard to play with, and within a week the whole thing had expanded into a large-scale operation as they endeavoured to add specific chants for specific clubs and building a quite impressive and near seamless sound collage. Don't underestimate football fans and the money behind football, is all I've got to say.
Just absolutely bizarre. Absolutely bizarre.
I've got a wee bit more just to read. I'm kind of cherry picking.
Yeah, it's a very long
paragraphs
story
that I enjoyed. It's a cool story. I would advise anybody that's interested to go and read, because we're just skimming over it. You'd think it would be near impossible to bottle the emotion of a live audience, but they've done quite an impressive job. Perry demonstrates the process, toying with various nozzles on his desk, which is as daunting to an outsider as the pilot's control panel. He turns up the goal sound via a fader, followed by the miss, a gasp of frustration followed by a smattering of claps that we all know so well. On first glance, the process looks simple, but there are several layers to it. Well, there is one bed loop that plays throughout and replicates the wall of sound and chatter created by a group of 30,000 plus people. There isn't one blanket reaction for each event, a goal, a miss, a red card, but several reactions of varying degrees of intensity, hence the need for numerous pieces of equipment. A near miss for the losing home side in the 90th minute of an important game will be a lot louder and more distraught than one early in a 0-0 draw, or 0-0 draw. There are home and away controls, which are uploaded with specific chants and sounds for the respective teams in each match. The away team is panned off to the side to mimic the typical placement of away fans in one section of the stadium. The home fans will almost always be louder than the away fans. Like, there is a lot of thought in this.
Yeah, I admire it. I admire the thought that's gone into it. I hadn't even considered the thing about the chasing the football around for sound as well. That's things you don't consider, but these things all matter, right?
I never thought that would. I thought maybe the up close cameras, the ones that are down by the pitch, maybe had like a shotgun mic, and they were picking up the sound of the ball being booted across the park, but it was being fed in along with the big giant camera that sits above, an overview camera, whatever you want to call it. But the fact that there is someone who controls 17 microphones to make sure that you can hear someone kick a football is fucking mental. But in a good way. Like, it's nice they've getting attention to detail for it.
Why don't they just, eliminate his job and just put a microphone inside the football? Problem solved. Just have it on a little cable.
Have a football skip so built into
Okay, let's move on from this. I actually feel like an idiot because I didn't even really segue into that story, and there was such an obvious story that I should have segued into after doing the Essex recording studios. My longtime friend and follower, Chris Smart, sent me a tweet. He often sends tweets to me. I'm not really much of a Twitter user, so I never respond to them, and I always feel bad. But I always see them, and if I think they're good, I always make a note of them. And he sent over the official Megadeth jigsaw puzzles to be released in October. Megadeth jigsaw puzzles. Wow.
Rust in pieces sell, but who's buying?
Yeah.
Oh, come on, Chris.
I know.
It's good, but also, come on.
Well, it's one of those, like, you've really done the story for us, mate. You've presented the comedy story in real time, and you've also given us the comedy comment on it. I don't really know if Rust in Pieces and Pieces Sell But Who's Buying can really be topped. So I don't feel negatively about this. This is yeah.
I spent a good 10 minutes trying to one up Chris with his good puns, and it just didn't happen. It's like
yeah. Yeah, I don't hate this. It's merchandise is fine. If bands are merchandise, and it's as long as you're not going overboard with it, as long as you're not Kerry Kinging it, like, sure. Puzzles.
Fair.
These strike me as very cool, sort of like, you'd expect to be given this on Father's Day from Finley at some point. These are just...
I would fucking love that, man. I would cry.
Yeah.
I'm serious. I'd be like, this is badass. Like, see, little personal things, man, they're what hit my heart. I don't, like, if somebody turned up with a Ferrari, I certainly wouldn't be upset. But it means a lot more to me, something that's like meant to be personal. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, the thought has been more about the actual thought than it has been the object.
See, that's not what I thought you meant when you said you'd cry. What I actually thought was you'd look at a puzzle and go, I just don't have enough time to sit and do this, and you've just brought that to my attention. Being an adult's so fucking hard.
Why do I have to work in everybody else's schedules?
Yeah. But thank you, Chris. Continue. Please do continue to send in things, especially like that. But next time, maybe don't give us all of the best possible puns.
I know. Well, I mean, we could maybe put this out to the listeners and the commenters on YouTube and stuff, if anyone can think any better puns, because I can't really think of any that go with it. Which is a pain in the ass, because I love Megadeth. I know a lot of Megadeth song titles, and like none of them I'm like, I can just, usually like puns come to you like that, and you're like, that's a good one. Or it comes to you and you go, nah, I'm not saying that out loud.
Yeah,
I'm not even getting any.
To me, it's really difficult, because what on earth, you've got maybe 3 things that you can pun on with puzzles. One would be the word jigsaw, one would be the word puzzles, and one would be the word pieces. I can't really think of anything else Are there puzzle nerds out there that have all of this really in-depth terminology that they have? Like, maybe edges. You could, I guess, you talk about the edges of puzzles, but this isn't. Let's not continue to talk about how we can't be funny.
Yes, I like that. But let's move on.
Okay, let's do the Live Nation thing.
Speaking of not funny.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
So this was the 16th of July, and this has been in testset.io, which I'm not sure which that website actually really does, if it's just politics and like financial business. I think it might be like a kind of business oriented website for kind of media. Quite a lot of political stuff on there. Anyway, Live Nation, iHeartRadio, SiriusXM, Ticketmaster and Pandora are now all under the control of one man. And when I saw that headline, I was like, this is not good. So, or potentially not good, because it's definitely, in my mind, that's having a majority stakehold over pretty much all creative outlets.
It's a monopoly.
In all, 100%. So, the Justice Department have approved billionaire John Malone's takeover of iHeartMedia. He now controls the music industry from the root to the fruit, by David Ike Turner. So, sorry, David, for reading your words, my friend. You say it better than most people I know. The Justice Department has greenlit a proposal by Liberty Media to increase its holdings in iHeartMedia. iHeartMedia is the owner of the nation's largest collection of broadcast radio stations. This deal would expand a stranglehold on the radio market by a company that already owns and operates SiriusXM and Pandora. Now, I know they're not popular in the UK, but you go to the States, DAB, the first station that comes on usually is SiriusXM. It's massive. Liberty Media has controlling stakes in concert behemoths, never get this right, Live Nation and Ticketmaster. The decision has granted owner John Malone and Liberty Media a virtual 360-degree domination of the music industry via radio, streaming, concerts, festivals and ticketing. The expansion was authorised by federal antitrust prosecutors on Wednesday. The deal allows Liberty Media to expand its shares of iHeartMedia by up to 50%. The company holds 5% currently in iHeartMedia, and the company that controls more than 850 AM and FM radio stations, as well as the streaming service iHeartRadio. The company is currently the planet's biggest commercial publisher of podcasts.
Are we on there?
So we shouldn't speak badly, just in case, because we get fucking crushed. I mean, Liberty Media is owned by billionaire John Malone, who was famously referred to by Al Gore as Darth Vader. Known for his expansionist and aggressive business tactics, Malone drew scrutiny in recent years for his support of Donald Trump's presidency. Malone donated $250,000 to the Trump inauguration. Malone owns a controlling position at the US's biggest satellite radio service, SiriusXM. Last year, Sirius purchased streaming platform Pandora. Liberty Media controls a 33% stake in Live Nation Entertainment, which effectively gives it a seat at the head of the table. No other organisation controls as much of what is the largest concert promotion firm in the world. This includes control of Ticketmaster, the largest ticketing platform on the planet. It is yet to be seen how this move aids solvency of an already ailing Live Nation. As said in the space previously, Live Nation has always maintained their position through domination rather than innovation. I think reading any more of this is just fucking heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It's...
Yeah, good to know. I think maybe the idea of the root to the fruit is a bit of an overreach, because he's not creating any of the music, right? So there's still one little thing that he doesn't control, but we'll give him a few years. I'm sure he'll own all the record labels too.
Considering he owns almost every real medium of platform, that at least one medium and platform that your music has got to get to have any sort of airplay. You could write the best songs in the world, and if you can't strike up a deal with this guy, you're probably fucked.
I would really like to see the stats on this, because to me, like, radio is just not a thing. But I know it is for people. I've never listened to radio, like never, ever. And every time my father-in-law's over, he's massively into the radio, and he's always talking about all these, did you hear this show this week, or I was listening to this guy talk about this thing, or did you catch this? And every single time it's the same thing. No, Tom, I didn't. Of course I didn't.
Radio is just podcast, but not on demand.
Yeah, and I just have to wonder: has there been a massive decline in radio? Is radio popular in any place other than when people are driving from A to B? You know what I mean?
Some workplaces.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, but even then, it's like background noise, isn't it?
But you also have a lot of people who do listen to it. A lot of people who didn't quite transition onto TV.
Yeah, and I'd like to kind of get an idea of how big an audience that actually is, because there certainly was a time where people would all sit around the radio and listen, right? But it's just
I think you've got a point. I know that they generally don't hand out commercial broadcast FM licenses anymore in the UK.
Right.
I don't know if that's because they're trying to push more towards digital,
right,
and internet-based radio, or if it's just because there's not that much of a listening base that it's not justifiable by cost and effort, whatever. Don't know.
Yeah.
But that's even big stations with a lot of money behind them and famous names struggle to get an FM license.
Sure. I guess what I'm really getting at is I'm wondering just how important radio is in kind of creating the trends, creating what becomes popular. There certainly is a time where radio was the only possible way that you could break into the mainstream, right? That you could be heard by a lot of people, and that's just not really the case anymore. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't impact things, because I think on a subconscious level, one of the ways that people are probably exposed to popular music is just by shopping. You're walking around shops, the shops play things on the radio plays you popular songs, you get those earworms in, and yeah, that's how it kind of programs the new popular songs into your mind. If it sounds really, really dystopian when I put it like that, programming the songs that you will choose to purchase into your mind. But I just don't know how people are sort of discovering new music nowadays. So that'd be interesting. I think you probably agree with this. When we were younger, it was music television.
Kerrang, The Box, Scuzz, what was the other? There was other metal channels or guitar-based channels.
You got a lot
VH1
of
had a lot of classic rock.
You got a lot of rock on MTV2.
VH2 as well. Well, MTV2 had the Headbangers Ball, etc. So I absolutely bang on. But you're right. It was like satellite and cable TV was the next big push because they could put music videos on, and you'd Beavis and Butthead, and you had the Headbangers Ball. And
whereas now, I think that well, if you look back then, the way that you would be exposed to new music was somebody working for either radio or TV or music television, that sort of thing. They would be deciding what they wanted to be putting out there, what they thought was going to be popular, and that would be your way of discovering things. I think now we are a lot more in control of that ourselves as consumers, because we are using social media. When we find things we like, we talk about them, we share them with friends, and things can get a pretty solid following via more grassroots means than they once did. If you think of bands like the Arctic Monkeys, that was
I'll give you one
self-made band. Go on.
Enter Shikari.
Yeah.
Enter Shikari started through MySpace, starting out tours, etc., and they now genuinely do festival and fucking stadium tours.
Yeah.
Huge name.
Yeah, and they just strike me as one of those bands where I can't imagine that if you went to some crusty old buffoon like John Malone and said, check us out, we're going to be the next big thing, you should play us on all your radio stations, that he'd be like, yeah, I see this.
but I don't know if that proves anything other than they're an outlier in terms of one of the bands that did make it through MySpace, because not a lot of bands did. I think Enter Shikari were lucky enough they'd done something fairly unique. They had that kind of rave rock beatdown kind of sound with the kind of synthy keyboards, as well as the fit right into the emo scene. A lot very alternative in the sense that they must have had like not a rabid fan base, but like a unique fan base. People were into the band because it was something different, and clearly a good sense of music business to progress from a free platform that people can make their own stuff on, into tours, to gigs, to recording contracts, to sign to major labels. I think they're signed to like Sony or something now.
Right.
Same with Bring Me the Horizon. They're huge as well now. I don't know why. They should never have been big at all, ever, in my opinion. But that's just me. But like, I think these bands are more the exception rather than the rule. You know what I mean? But I get what you're saying. Like, people who have this much control. I'm not saying, or I don't think for any matter of means, that John Malone's sitting at the top of the board listening to every single single that comes through and deciding whether it gets played or not. But you're right. Like, there must be a really serious disconnect between the business side, which is John Malone's obvious strong point, and the guys that are actually talent scouting and putting the music through. So, who knows, man?
Okay, let's talk about guitar and audio equipment sales on the rise.
Let's talk about sex, baby. Let's talk about you. And sorry, you started me. Guitar and audio equipment sales on the rise in the UK during lockdown, and I can guarantee that's the case, man. The price of microphones and interfaces went sky high. The price of capture cards went sky high. The price of general equipment, even just getting computers, has somewhat surged. Everybody and their granny has started a podcast, and again, I brought that up before. That's not a criticism. It's not a problem. That's a good thing, but it does mean that there's a very saturated market. And even for ourselves, I think we were late to the game, and we started 3 years ago.
That's been.
You know what I mean? And when you've got people like Joe Rogan getting paid ridiculous lumps of money from streaming services to go exclusive, being on episode 1,400 and whatever else he's on, all these famous people, which helps because he's famous himself. You know what I mean? Like. It's very easy to become disheartened with it, and I hope all of these people who are getting into it are doing it for the passion of it, and not because they think they're going to do 2 episodes and make a fortune. Because
we're looking at buying another SM7B for the podcast, so we can have 2 of them in here, kind of set and forget type things. And that's like I was going to say cheap, expensive microphone, but more expensive than it used to be. It's like £400 now, like just an obscenely expensive microphone. Great microphone. That's not an investment. It's not even an investment. I was going to say that's not going to be an investment that's going to pay for itself. Like that's not an investment. It's something that it's
an expense.
Yeah, absolutely. Because this podcast doesn't make any money, so. We've got
we're not here for the money.
Exactly.
If it makes us money, brilliant. We would love to do that. If I didn't have to go to work or do anything else, and this was like a way where it was like, cool, we can do more content, then brilliant. But if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to lose sleep over it.
We do the most important thing, which is we make enough money on t-shirts for those of you that have been awesome enough to grab a t-shirt, link in the description, and that pays for the hosting, which is
and that gives us a year of criticising people like Chris Taylor Brown and Lance Benedict. Don't forget his name. He's a fucking steak oil salesman. And other pieces of shit. And we've spoken plenty of pieces of shit. And if we have a year's platform of talking about pieces of shit and having entertaining conversations with each other and entertaining people who want to engage with us, brilliant. That's fine by me.
But also, worst case scenario, if we didn't sell a single t-shirt this year and couldn't afford the hosting, I'd just pay for the hosting and we'd continue doing it, because again, we're doing it for the love of it, not for the not for the riches. So why don't you take a look at this story then?
Certainly. So this was on Music Radar, posted 2 days ago. Guitar and audio equipment sales on the rise in the UK during lockdown, and the tagline is this a boom time for new players and podcasters too? Exactly what I just said. Yes. It's quite a short column, which is good. So the lockdown has hit music hard, but at least one area of the industry booming right now is beginner guitar, piano and sound equipment sales, according to one of the biggest UK online retailers, Gear for Music, who are huge. It's attributed to more players picking up instruments, recording and making podcasts too. And the BBC reports that in the April to June period, Gear for Music saw the value of UK sales rise 80% to $21.2 million compared to the same time last year. Spend that money at local stores and small independent chains. Gear for Music do not need your money. Saving £10 in your end is probably shutting down other stores. Just as a besides, if you can support smaller businesses, please do it. Electric guitar and acoustic guitar beginner starter packs are said to be some of the biggest sellers, with digital pianos also picking up sales traction. People are interested in having a really good hobby that they can get into, Gear for Music Chief Executive Andrew Wass told the BBC. Maybe they played music at school and have found themselves indoors and decided to come back to it. Which is, funnily enough, my aunt got a guitar from my granddad, God rest him, when she was 8. She's never learnt to play and she's always wanted to, and she gave it to me because she's like, the tuners have broken, I don't know what's happened. The last person that fixed it for her put steel strings on this little Spanish nylon string acoustic and an electric guitar nut. So the nut is like that and the fretboard's like that, and the machine heads have literally, like, the buttons on them have snapped under the tension of trying to tension strings. 2 strings were tensioned, the guitar's bellied, the neck's bent slightly, and the bridge plate has started coming off the top. And I was like, Elaine, I don't know who fixed your guitar last time, but you shouldn't take it to people that don't know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, it was playing fine, it's definitely a steel string guitar. I'm like, no, it isn't. It doesn't have a reinforcement through the neck. I'm telling you this as someone who has played guitar for a long time and had to have these conversations almost weekly in a music store. Like that it won't work.
Yeah,
you'll break the guitar, it'll do a lot more damage than good. Anyway, so it doesn't surprise me that people are coming back to it, and that people are maybe dipping their toes in as well. So Mr. Wass also said the home studio equipment, including podcasting microphones and recording software, was proving popular on the site as well. It seems everybody wants to be a podcaster and they're buying into really professional setups at home, he added. Which is fair, because you can get some very impressive equipment and some impressive results from almost nothing. My main criticism is you scroll down past that, it says more about latest and then see more related, and this is literally a endless, and I'm not kidding, endless page of adverts for random shit throughout the Music Radar page. Music Radar, sort your shit out.
Well, they gotta make their money. Gotta make their money somehow.
They can't be that skint. They've got 700 adverts for a 6-paragraph fucking article. Anyway,
so the beginners thing is definitely on the rise because of the quarantine thing. When this kicked off, I was genuinely very concerned when Amazon stopped shipping my books out, because that's essentially That's most of my income nowadays. Is what I focus on. So, almost 2 weeks they just weren't shipping books out. And if you went on the page to buy a book, it said, will be shipped in 3 weeks or something like that. So I had to look at that and be like, wow, awesome. Nobody's going to buy a book for the next God knows how long. This could be really, really fucking bad. But then when my royalties came in, I get my royalties every 2 months. When my royalties came in a while back, even with that 2 week period where essentially no one was buying anything, for the other 6 week period where people were buying things, it made that royalty check bigger than any royalty check that I'd ever had before, and it's in the middle of the year, and it's just because people are buying beginner stuff, which is absolutely awesome for our industry. It's the future of this industry is dependent on people picking up instruments and learning to fucking play, getting passionate about it like we both are, and feeling welcomed into it, feeling like you're a part of it. You might be an inexperienced beginner player, but you are under our wing, you are part of our community, and one day, probably very soon, I'm going to be too old and tired to do this anymore, and someone needs to take the reins. So if you would like to take those reins, please stay under that wing, and I'll give them to you as soon as humanly possible, because I'm tired. I'm very tired.
Don't kid yourself on. You're going to have geriatric rage times going when you're 70.
Yeah. I'm not going to make
it back in my day.
The thing is, like, when you think about my music tastes, I wouldn't even say that. I'd go, but back in the days, but long before me, things were so good.
And back in ye olden times.
Yeah. So, cool. I'm really glad that instrument sales are picking up, because that's good. You know that, though, don't you? Just because, I don't know about you, but the one thing I've kind of noticed a hell of a lot of on YouTube, probably because I've built a new PC and I've not set up all of my usual ad block type things, but I feel I'm getting a lot more YouTube ads and things, and also obviously the system doesn't have a long search history, so it's getting to know, ads are starting to get to know me as a person again, and the things that I'm into. So
YouTube has got really bad.
I'm getting a lot of Fender Play adverts.
I keep getting all these fucking just clickbait style ones. Have you tried learning the guitar through YouTube and through Musician? You should try it this way, because this is the best way if you want instant results. And I'm just like, every time I'm like, oh my god, people are clicking this and I don't know why.
I wish more people like that would just contact me personally so I could send them pictures of my balls.
Why don't you and I just make an advert and we'll pay for it to be on YouTube, and it'll be like, hey, are you thinking about learning guitar? And you think about, don't try this method or that method or these methods. Get a fucking teacher. Stop being an idiot. It's the only way to do it.
I was actually thinking what you were going to say is, hey, are you thinking to learn to play guitar? And then it could just cut to Kieran looking straight into the camera and saying, don't.
Don't.
Don't. Okay, let's do the main story. This is, what should musicians get paid?
This is a very interesting one, actually, isn't it?
Yeah,
so this is from Brittany Bowman.
It's going to be hard for us to have a proper nuanced, heavy discussion on this, because I know, I dumped this video on you just yesterday, so I know you've not actually had the time to really
only
digest
seen it this morning, or I would have watched it yesterday. So my bad. I mean, I was stuck on the toilet, not to be too graphic, for about 40 minutes. I could have watched it, but I was somewhat distracted.
Yeah.
Shall I say?
So this is posted on
Preoccupied.
YouTube video posted by Brittany Bowman. So go and check her channel out, give her a sub. Cool content, definitely cool content, and anything that helps to kind of grow YouTube channels is good. So help her out.
What will I read her description, her wee blurb?
Brittany
Bowman.
Yeah.
Brittany Bowman is a Los Angeles-based female multi-instrumentalist, can't even say it, drummer, guitarist, bassist and songwriter who's been playing since she was 10 years old. She always knew music was what she wanted to do with her life, and has since performed on stage with bands like Green Day to working on major tours. She's available for touring, local gigs, session work, etc. While she's a rock and roll girl at heart, she enjoys playing everything from punk to jazz to indie to metal. Keep up with her on all social media platforms. But the real question is, do you play gypsy jazz? Like real gypsy jazz?
That is...
Or western swing?
That's where it's at. Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not.
I like that she said she's a rock girl at heart. I mean, we can tell. Like, this is a heavily tattooed woman. Good on you. Good on you, hen, to be Scottish about things. But yeah, so I'll give you a basic rundown of this video. So for those of you that follow or are exposed to the kind of viral video style of popular YouTubers, anyone that's in the million sub range, they all tend to make a lot of the same videos, the same ideas, because one sees what someone else does, they see how effective it was in terms of engagement, and they go, cool, I'll do something similar to that. We've often made fun on the show of the amount of vocal teachers that go, you know what, I want to start a YouTube channel. What shall I do? I know, I'll react to Devin Townsend singing Kingdom.
No, the only reaction video that exists is Reaction Coach reacts to reactions. Kieran's video.
Oh, yeah.
That's just...
And that's the way it should be.
It's perfect satire in my mind.
Yeah. So, yeah, kind of trend hopping, following the trends is important. So if you watch like Davey, the bass player, he definitely did a bunch of videos semi-recently where he was paying people on Fiverr to play bass guitar parts for him on tracks, and then he would review their work type thing. And he would be comparing people, recording bass lines for literally $5 all the way up to a couple of $100. And then he would kind of rank them, and then being Davey, he would then do his own bass take at the end and show that even if you pay for people, he's still better than you, because sure, that's a nice conclusion. So it seems that someone else did one of these videos and they did it with drummers. And Brittany was featured in that video. She was one of the drummers that submitted a drum take to this guy as a paid gig, as a session drummer, and the guy had paid drummers anything from $12 up to what she was paid. I think it was around the $240 mark, $240 range. And when reading,
isn't a lot of money for a session musician.
No, it's
in my mind.
No, it's not. We'll come on to that. It's because you're right. It's not. It's totally not. So $240. And when you read the comments, when she had read the comments to that, she was essentially taking issue with a lot of the comments where they were saying that, the $12 guy was excellent, especially for the price. People saying that her drumming was really, really good, but there's better value for money out there, etc., etc. And the video essentially talks about this idea of what should musicians get paid, explaining why she charges what she does for videos, and then trying to do the kind of thing I do, which is I'm trying to encourage the community as a whole to be better about ourselves, right? To charge people what you are worth, to kind of understand the value that you bring to the world and work together as a community to kind of keep those values in mind. $240, you're absolutely right, is not a lot of money for a drum session. In fact, she's undercharging. But it depends on the project. You know what I mean? Like if she was recording, she said she played with Green Day for something. No real details on what, but let's say that
probably something to do with the American Idiot live show, because they had a lot of
good point,
like a big stage show. Remember?
Yeah.
And it was like almost like a mini musical. It was theatre style.
Yeah.
So maybe something to do with that.
So if you are doing a project like that for Green Day, it's a project that is financially lucrative. It's a project that is, and I don't mean for the session musician, I mean for the people that are putting the project together. It is a project that is going to make a lot of money. Therefore, there is a budget to be paying your musicians. Really struggling with my words there. So when you compare that to some of the stuff like the Guitar Souls theme is a really good example of this, which Kieran did the drums on, right? This podcast over the last year, I think, has made about $120, right? If we were to look at what this podcast has made, and it's not done it based on that theme, and we've been using that theme for the best part of 3 years, right? If we were to look at that and say, right, well, the correct thing to do is to pay your session drummer the going standard rate, and the Musicians Union in the US would deem that to be about $400. It's just not financially viable. It's not even close to financially viable. And that was really, like, while I ultimately really agree with everything, the kind of sentiment that Brittany is going for in her video, where she's talking about as a musician, you need to value yourself. Don't go in and undercut everyone around you, because that doesn't help the music industry as a whole. That's a race to the bottom. I should say, I think that she does miss maybe the point of why there is a guy that's doing drum sessions for $12, and it's because he's not a professional. You you can't be doing drum sessions for $12 a track and be a professional. You don't.
I disagree with you, because the literal term of professional is doing something and being paid for it. I don't consider myself a professional musician, but party can and get paid.
No, I would go a little bit more than that. If the guy does one session this month and gets paid $12, and that's the only money he makes from music, is he a professional or has he got lucky? You're right in that he has been paid for music, but I feel that a part of being professional is that it needs to be not necessarily enough to completely live on, but it needs to be substantial enough that it's, of worth. $12 is nothing.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
You're fair enough.
Yeah.
I googled professional just to double check, because I thought it was maybe just my focus would have been just if you're being paid, then you can at least claim you're semi-professional. Sure. But the official dictionary description is engaged in a specified activity as one's main paid occupation, rather than as an amateur.
Sure.
So, okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
we'll split hairs on that one. You got it right.
I'm still with you. I am still with you, because I subscribe to the idea that words don't have meanings; they have usages. Meanings of words change over time. So,
language, all interpretation.
Yeah. So I do know what you mean, and I think I've probably made the argument that if you're being paid to do something, then you're professional in the past, and I do get that. But I guess what I'm saying is, what he's doing at $12 a session, if it's going to take him 3 hours to get his thing done, he could fill every single hour of the day doing that for people, and at the end of the month he would not have made close to enough money to live on, because the price is so unbelievably low. It's never going to be profitable. He's probably doing it. I say probably. He's probably doing it because it's a hobby that he enjoys. He loves playing the drums. He loves working with people on musical projects, and if he can make a few pennies doing that, the enjoyment that he gets from doing it is just as much a payment as the pennies that he's getting. And sure, it's entirely possible that he may be just as good as the person that charges $200 odd. It's entirely possible. But he's certainly doing a disservice to the people that maybe don't have day jobs, the full-time musicians that are trying to carve out a career. I mean, definitely doing a disservice to those people, because now we're in a time where people are looking at people that are charging perfectly reasonable rates, like living wage amounts, and saying that they want too much money. And so I totally agree with her on that point. I think that it's important that we're not all undercutting each other. It's not good for the industry as a whole.
It's one of the downsides of free market capitalism, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah.
That it's meant to be that there's healthy competition. There's only so far healthy competition can go when it's just basically individuals who don't have enough backing to turn jobs down, bidding themselves and others lower, till essentially the average or median salary or payment just falls.
Yeah.
So it can be good, but clearly it's not good when there's people, as you say, like professional musicians are maybe missing out on what would be considered a fair payment of $200, $250 when you look at it from the bigger picture, because there's people who are doing it for $15. You're right, I get that.
Yeah. Go on.
It's really interesting as well, because it's like uncharted territory, that whole session musicians, freelance, whatever else, because it's one of those ones that's like, you can charge what you deem to be a fair amount. Yeah. It's at your terms. You put out there, I will do these things for this money, and if that doesn't suit you, then don't ask me. There might be negotiation in price, but this is essentially what my rates are. Yeah. But if there's no minimum wage there, then I think that's a really dangerous concept.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't mean that as in like minimum wage where you're going to find people are just offering the minimum wage as you get in the job market most of the time. But if there's no understood and perceived minimal value to this work, then how far down could it go? You know what I mean?
I think it's one of the underappreciated aspects of making a career, or even a semi-career as a musician. It's one of the things that we just don't put any thought into, which is the business side of things. And it's just so unbelievably important to think a little bit more long-term, business-wise, financially wise. That feels like a sentence. To think about the finances in the long term and the viability of things in the long term. Because this, like, if you start doing things at $12 a session, you are, if you're popular, you're inevitably going to have to put your prices up. because if you did fill your days with $12 sessions, you're not going to have any time to go out and do your day job to pay your rent, because you're not making enough money to pay your rent type thing. So it's absolutely not viable. When I started teaching, I absolutely was undercharging. And it was because I get it. Like as I'm saying, I've been there. I undercharged not because I was trying to undercut everybody, but because I had very little, notable experience, and was trying to get more experience and have people take a chance on me. And it was actually my students that would say to me, look, you need to put your prices up. You have to put your prices up. You'll get more students if you put your prices up, because people will think that you're advertising a service that is valuable. As it currently stands, when you're charging so little compared to the people around you, people think that you're offering a knockoff service, a cheaper, less quality service. And one of the points that Brittany makes in her videos is, if an electrician or a mechanic or whatever wanted to offer to work on your car and do it for free, or fix the electrics in your house and do it for free, that would send alarm bells ringing in your mind, because you don't expect those things to be free. You want them to be done well, so you pay the right wages for them, right? You don't underpay. If a mechanic's really cheap, run the fucking other way, because your car's going to blow up in 200 miles,
Unless you're really lucky.
Yeah. And taking risks with your life, sure, that makes total sense. There have definitely been times in my life going for jobs where negotiating on salaries with bosses, and knowing what you're worth, or at least feeling that you know what you're worth, telling them what you want, them telling you what they'll give you, you trying to negotiate, and then if you don't get what you want, if you not what you want, but if you don't get what you think you're worth, having the confidence to go elsewhere. I kind of semi-butted heads with a client over this last week, who I've done a bunch of transcriptions for over the years, and he wanted me to do some transcriptions for him, and asked for a price, gave him my price based on my standard rates. All my clients know my prices, standard rate stuff. It wasn't a round number, so he asked if we could round it down to the round number, and I said it was like $4 less, and I'm like, sure, no problem. And then he sent me another email saying, could we negotiate a little bit lower than that? And I'm like, no, we can't. We can negotiate up if you want. We can go up, because realistically, I've got so much work on right now. I'm so damn busy pulling my hair. Like, my psoriasis is flaring up all over my head because I'm so stressed with the amount of shit that I've got to do, and I can't keep on top of it all. The last thing I need to be doing is doing more work for less money. You know what I mean?
Aye, it's crazy. You're now in the position, very fortunately, but also through a lot of hard work, that you can pick and choose what work comes your way. And we've had conversations about projects you've got coming in, and things where you're like, do I turn this down because I've got this on the horizon, what's going to be better for me in the long run, and whatever else. But I mean, I am shameless when it comes to haggling. You know that, right? But not like offensively. But if I can get a couple of quid off something, I will ask. Because if you don't ask, you don't get. It doesn't change the deal, right? Like, it doesn't change the fact this thing is for sale and it's maybe still within budget or whatever. But if you've negotiated successfully to get something down, you probably shouldn't pick at it again, because then you go from looking like someone who's just trying to be savvy about money to just being a wee bit selfish and
also
thrifty.
When you haggle, you're haggling to get money off of something that you're buying from someone. You're not haggling for how much someone charges for their time.
Fair eye. I don't generally do it with services. I don't. Yeah. Like, you're talking about mechanics and stuff. I wouldn't go to mechanics and go, I know you charge £40 labour an hour. Can you do it for 13?
Yeah, exactly. And the guy was really upset when I said no. He was like, well, I've got to say, I'm really disappointed. We've worked with each other for a very long time, and I just thought that you could maybe cut me a deal. And that really irked me. I had to come back with, I tell you what, I'll cut you an extra special deal, right? I'll do it for $10 for you, which is probably fucking 10%, 5% of the quoted price. I'll do it for $10 for you, on the condition that I can start it when I run out of work that's paying me my standard rates. Because there's just no reason to undervalue yourself. There's no reason to do work for less than what your rates are. And if we as a whole all had this, I had to point out to the guy, there's plenty of other transcribers. You can go to other transcribers. There are transcribers that are cheaper than me. There are transcribers that are more expensive than me. But you don't come to me for any reason other than my work is better. My work is fast and it's better. Very arrogant. My work's good. I'm good at.
I don't think that's arrogant. You're not saying. Well, I mean, saying it's better than other people's. Maybe, but
I'm good at what I do.
As you said, you can't undervalue your own work. That's your whole point. Is you need to understand the intrinsic value and quality of your own service and what you provide and why people come to you. I think that's all you're pointing out.
Yeah. So here, let's get into our heated discussion, because I know there'll be a heated discussion over this one. We almost had it right before the show. I don't think it'll be heated. We almost had it right before the show, and I was like, no, let's do this on the show. This will be better. Mm-hmm. So, as I say, completely agree with Brittany in terms of like this idea. As a community, we need to value ourselves. What she's doing, and she says it in her videos, that she's actually advocating for the people that are charging $12. But she's not saying, go and hire this guy for $12. She's literally saying to you, you are worth more. You should charge more, and that's great. Like, that's really good. I completely agree with her. You're worth more than $12. Charge more. Charge more than $12.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. But
yes.
A lot of her justifications for why she should be charged more is she talks about famous drummer friends that she has, and she shows you, the Musicians Union standard session rates and things like that. And, back in the day, if you were doing a recording session, this is the base rate that the Musicians Union allows musicians to be charged. So if you're hiring people for sessions, these are the rates that you will be paying. This is the base rate. And that's really helpful, because prior to hiring someone, it totally puts you in a position of knowing right off the bat, it's going to cost me at least X, So from a content creator's perspective, it's useful, right? But, I feel that the rates that the Musicians Union were kind of advocating for musicians back in the day are way off base for where we are now, because the musicians are far greater in terms of their amount. There are a lot more musicians knocking around now, all trying to carve out a living. So supply is high, right? But also demand is very low. Demand is low because music as a whole is just less and less financially viable. There is less budget involved in the creation of music nowadays. It's the reason why we do so many things on our own. If I put out a record 25 years ago, the idea of me recording it myself, me trying to do most of the mixing myself, that would be ludicrous. Yeah, that would be absolutely ludicrous. I'm going to have an audio engineer that's going to take care of that. I'm going to have somebody mixing it. It's then going to go to someone else to master it. In a perfect world now, if you want to put out a record and it be viable and you're still not going to make any fucking money, you need to record it yourself, you need to mix it yourself, you need to master it yourself, you need to do the artwork yourself, you need to distribute it yourself, you need to do everything yourself to minimize the amount of money you're going to lose. So looking at the Musicians Union and saying, well, what we need to do is we all need to unionize, and then moving forward, the only way that anybody would be able to hire any session musicians whatsoever would be to pay the standard rates. And the standard rates that she shows off in her video, I think it was something like $430 for 15 minutes of music. So that's like a 3-hour session. $430 for a 3-hour session is a lot of money. That's a lot of money. And if I wanted to put out a record and I wanted 3 musicians to work with me on that, it's probably going to be
$1,300 easy.
Yeah, easy. Beyond that, because that's for 15 minutes of music. It's going to be probably $4,000 to record a full album. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. And when she's talking about this idea of like, we have to unionize, there's absolute value to the union and giving us, the workers, power. I think that's good. But it's also really, really easy when you do that to kind of lose sight of the realism of the scenario. You should absolutely charge what you're worth. And if you bring value to a project, you will be able to charge more for that, for the value that you bring. If you can make money for someone, you are worth more. But it doesn't matter how good you are. It doesn't matter how much value you bring to a project if that project itself is financially worthless. What do you think?
Aye, I totally agree with you. I think just as much standard pricing is a good idea as remembering that people are picked for projects, especially musicians, for their specific contributions. Like, Stephen Wilson didn't just pick Marco Miniman to record on his albums and Guthrie Govan to do the guitar just because they were available. Like, they were the guys he wanted. And obviously they can charge whatever they want. Whatever they charge is their business. But to kind of allude that everybody who's on Fiverr or any of these sites should all be charging standard price or should unionise so that there's a minimum pricing in place, without recognising that you're still all individual musicians who bring different things to the table. It's maybe a bit naive.
Yeah, you would have to standardise your rates and have your the kind of union base rates so low that it would enable room for those of you that have a little bit more presence, a little bit more reputation, a little bit more experience or whatever, that they could charge above those rates for the system to be worth anything whatsoever. Because in this scenario, if you unionize in this scenario, and let's say as musicians across the world, somehow we unionize and we say, okay, when we do a session on Fiverr, we will not charge a penny less than $200. Okay, and anything that is advertised at less than that will be pulled down because the musicians union supports Fiverr. They get the stamp of approval on Fiverr or whatever. So if Fiverr posts anything that's non-MU rates, Fiverr will pull it down type thing because Fiverr are trying to support the musicians. Right, cool. Let's say you do that. Awesome. So now when you go on Fiverr, every single musician is charging $200. So what is it that's going to set these low experienced up and coming musicians that are trying to carve out a living? What is it that's going to get them the work over somebody that maybe has a little bit more experience? The only way that they can do that is being competitively priced and being good at what they do. So undercutting each other is dangerous because it is a race to the bottom. You just need to be sensible enough to know when you're undercutting by too much. You need to be competitive, but not at the cost of your own, financial viability, your own potential in the industry, is what I would say. Fair?
That's fair.
Not fair?
Totally fair. Aye. I think
go on.
It's a strange situation, isn't it? Because you want to advocate for musicians asking for the right amount of money based on their value, but that also includes the musicians who can't put their prices up because they're asking what is essentially the right amount for their tenure. Not to say their lack of tenure, but appropriate to how much experience they have. Yeah. It's fucking mental.
Yeah, and I think what Brittany's saying here is like in kind of Brittany's like perfect world. No, perfect world. Okay. We would do that unionization thing. There would be the standard musicians union rates, and then she might potentially look at what she's offering and say, okay, well, my rates are 1.5 times standard rates because of the experience that I have, the experience and value that I can bring to a project. So you still end up in this world where you're charging more than the guy that was charging $12. And if you're not in a world where you're charging more than $12, then I have to look at you and give you the same advice that you gave him, which is you're worth more, charge more. So it's totally a difficult one, but as I say, I really do think that she's advocating for the right thing. And tiny little YouTube channel, 4,500 views, 4,500 subscribers. This video only has 2,000 views, so it's not a big deal. I just saw this posted on my Facebook, and what should musicians get paid? And I thought, I'll give this a watch. And I like some of the things that she was talking about. But you know what? I'll take us right back. I'll take us right back to the earliest days of the Guitar Souls, right when we started our Facebook page. The first image that I ever posted up on my Facebook page was me. I'm looking around to see if they're in here. They're not. My Apple AirPods, those £150 headphones. I posted a picture of those and said, yeah, look at me using my £1,000 phone and my £150 headphones to listen to music that people won't pay £1 for. That's the world we live in, right? There's just absolutely no value placed on music. And it's hard.
Or the arts in general.
Yeah.
Or the arts in general.
Yeah. And it's super hard for us as musicians to kind of adapt to that. How the hell do you adapt to a world where the rest of the world is telling you have no value? And that's really...
I think we've just as much done it to ourselves as other people have led us down this road, because ironically, you and I are talking about this, and I can imagine that both of us when we were younger used Kazaa and used fucking WinMX and used LimeWire, downloading music for free. I know you had a hearty music collection as well, like supporting bands and having CDs and stuff, but that the convenience factor of that, whether the cost's justifiable or not, it's not a lot of money to buy a CD, not a lot of money to buy an album off when you could on Apple Music or iTunes, whatever it was called, before it just became a streaming platform. Like, Am I right in thinking that you can't buy albums on there anymore?
I'm not actually sure. I was told.
I'm sure that happened.
I was told that I needed to go and buy Andy Wood's album on there because I'm transcribing it at the moment. And I didn't. Right. I didn't even go there. I went to Amazon to get it because I don't. I think you might be right. I certainly remember that being a thing.
But you get my point. Yeah. The convenience factor is still there.
Yep.
So where do you? And I think people maybe struggle to sort in their brain. I used to pay £11 for a physical CD where I got artwork and stuff I could read, and we've spoken about this before.
Yeah.
And a physical item that I own versus paying roughly the same money for a digital download. But it doesn't change the value of what you're getting.
Yeah.
Because when you buy that, you're not buying it for the case and the booklet. I mean, it's nice, it's good. You might get a digipack, somebody might send you a PDF with all that in it. But you're buying it for the music. Like, you're buying it because you want to hear what's been put on record by this musician or this artist or this group. And I think platforms, Spotify are probably the biggest to answer for, have essentially killed off the need for records and CDs and buying music, not because people don't want to, it's because they don't need to, and not because record stores etc. don't need to be there, but because people would rather take the convenience of I've bought it than going to the shop.
Well,
you know what I mean?
I think that you've made the right observation, but I think we come to a slightly different kind of who to point the finger at on that one.
I point the finger at the industry, but I also think there's a lot of other contributing factors in the minimisation of the value of the artist versus the value of the art, because if you valued the artist more than the art, then people would be paid appropriate amounts. But big record labels value what the art is going to make them, and then what they can essentially siphon off as costs of the artist. Yeah. Let's be honest, touring costs, printing costs, fucking merchandise in general, studio costs, giving you an upfront. There you go. There's your loan. Yeah. That you're now in 50k down the hole for us. Just madness. I started reading a book the other day, and I would not recommend it to anyone who is of faint of heart, and I really mean that, because it is probably the hardest book to read I've ever read in terms of just horrendously graphic, grotesque, judgmental, borderline, in fact not even borderline, like some parts of it are heavily racist and stuff.
Hang on, was it the Tory Party manifesto?
Are you feeling alright? No, it's Kill Your Friends by John Niven, which is a Scottish author. And Kill Your Friends is about Stephen Stelfox, who is a record label scout trying to bring in artists, and it's based in like late 90s, early 2000s. So there's all these references to all these bands and these musicians and artists and things that are happening during the year, and then his story. And it's just like, I think it's meant to be essentially like a graphic, partly tongue-in-cheek, but also very true to what actually happens. Look at what AR scouts were actually getting up to and what it was like in the music industry. Parties, coke, people being completely demeaning to each other, not paying any value, constantly just getting out their nut, expenses on the business card, which actually meant going to a restaurant that would put things through champagne, which actually meant a blowjob backstage, and like, wild, really interesting book, but also really horrendously written like someone who is, the character's meant to be just this unsavoury bigot that all he cares about is his own welfare and money. But it's interesting to read because it's almost like American Psycho. Anyway, my point is like that as some form of twisted insight as to what the music industry probably operates like to this day behind the scenes is
there's less budget for it, but that's totally.
I think you would like this book in the sense that you're like, it's relatable to an industry that I'm aware of, and there's probably parallels you'll pull between the characters and other people.
To kind of finish off or to come full circle on what I was saying, like I agree with you, and we have no love for Spotify, or despite the fact that I'm a Spotify user. I know you're a Google Play Music user. Google Play Music, yeah? Is that right?
Google Play Music. Yeah. But you can hate the idea of relentless capitalism you still have to engage with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not having a go. I'm saying that, your comments on piracy. Of course, I pirated a lot of music when I was younger.
We all did. We didn't know any better.
Well, and lots of studies have constantly pointed to this idea that people that pirate music spend more money on music than people that don't pirate music, right?
There are a lot of people who got albums before they bought them,
Yeah.
so they knew whether they were wasting money or not, and they knew who to support, what they wanted to support.
Or
Which is
even
fair
just
enough.
discovered a ton of new bands because they pirated stuff and then
That too, aye.
saw them on a show, on a tour, or whatever.
I would never have heard of Wesley Willis if I hadn't downloaded Nirvana doing a cover of Enter Sandman by Metallica on Kazaa
Oh,
which
I
remember that
yeah.
Suck My Dog's Dick song?
Stick, yeah.
Yep, that was very interesting when that came on, like Casio chords, and then just him graphically abusing me, which was nice. Sorry, your point is torrenting.
Yeah. So
Or downloading,
torrent
sorry, at the time
downloading stuff,
pirating.
Yeah. So I don't know if I agree with those. I love. We talked about this certainly in comment sections before with people when we were talking Corona stuff, and we're saying the beauty of statistics and using statistics for arguments is you can always use statistics to support your argument. There is always going to be a statistic that supports your argument, and you can always take one statistic and interpret it in multiple ways so that it will potentially suit your argument. So I sometimes feel that those arguments where you're talking about pirating stuff and those people actually end up spending more money on music, I feel that's like a justification of piracy, because I know far too many people, i.e. almost every single person in my family, because they have that inherent need or that inbuilt feeling that they have a right to things that they don't actually have a right to. So they have spent their entire, well, not their entire lives, but long periods of their lives never having to pay for music. So their logic is now, why would I pay for music? Why? I've not had to pay for music for 10 years. I shouldn't have to pay any money for music. Like, music's just free. You just take music. That's how music is. That's how they've been programmed now. So
That's just art in general.
Well,
Think about TV. You're inundated with music and adverts.
Yeah.
You're inundated with every form of different media you can imagine on TV, and by that I mean different genres of stuff. You get adverts, you get soaps, you get live TV, football, sports, whatever. Like, it's so easily accessible and so cheap that it seems like it's been devalued.
Yeah, and it has been. And I think that Apple rising to prominence with iTunes, you mentioned it earlier, it's convenience, right? Apple did so well with that because they were offering convenience. Suddenly, you had an alternative to piracy that, while it did cost you a little bit of money, you weren't going to be downloading viruses to your computer, and you could find anything that you wanted, almost anything you wanted, and have it at the click of a button, right? I love that convenience. I love, my favorite is Amazon Video. Like, there are things that I own on DVD that I'll still buy on Amazon Video because it's so much easier for me to just click buy for £4 than it is to go through some boxes to try and desperately find a DVD and then go and put it in my PlayStation. You know what I mean? Like,
and you've got a 4K version.
Yeah, exactly.
Fingertips, it just starts and that's it.
Yeah, so £4, bingo. You bet. I'm buying that. Like, this massive convenience. But
you can make the same argument about libraries versus buying books.
Yeah.
Why would I go and buy books when I can sit in the library and read the books, or just rent them out for £20 a week?
Because it's a massive
not a new
inconvenience to walk to a library.
But again, Kindle.
Yeah.
There you go. Like, there's the next argument, the digitisation of that argument. You know what I mean?
So Hayley and Megan have a book club that they do, just the two of them.
Nan started a book club, and her and the other person didn't read the book, the first book that they decided to choose. So it wasn't a book club.
Yeah. Hayley and Megan have been going for months and months now. I've read tons and tons of books. Super proud of Hayley. Like, and I listen to them talking about the books, and they go into these really deep discussions about what they thought of the book and themes in the book. Nice. And I'm like, I'm fucking really proud of you. But there is an app that she uses where it's essentially a digital library. You borrow the book digitally, and it's awesome, massive convenience, and I think that's great. We essentially had this race to the bottom after that, though, where streaming came in, and it's like, okay, well, let's add more convenience. Let's lower the price to the consumer even more, so they're more likely to use us because we're more convenient and we don't cost them a penny. And ultimately, there just ends up being almost no money to go around, and the convenience is massive, but then the musicians don't get paid. So the conclusion is really to look at Britney's situation and say, when somebody's listening to your music, listening to a track that you play on for, you get paid $200 or you want to be paid $400 or whatever, and that track gets 0.00001 pence or cent per stream or whatever ridiculous rate it is, it's not viable. It's not viable to look at that and go, this is how much I need to charge based on what I'm worth. What you are worth is the value that you can bring to a project. And again, if a project has no value, unfortunately, you need to reevaluate how much you're worth, I would say. Which sucks.
It does. And I think it also brings in another long-winded one we're not going to get into, which is a conversation of like trying to justify I know you were talking about statistics there, like the reason that Pandora and Spotify and all these streaming sites will only pay cents of a penny or like just like total non-realistic financial numbers is because they'll have broken down the amount of streams and whatever and blah 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 and how much it's costing them, and essentially they'll work out that's the value to us as far as we're concerned, but that's not the be all and end all of that value, you know what I mean? It certainly shouldn't be, but that's another fucking cascading minefield that you'd have to go into.
Yeah, I saw I can't even remember who it was. I was watching a Rick Beato video and he was raging about copyright strikes as Rick likes to do, and I can't even remember who it was that he had the video. I think it was a guy from the Eagles. I can't remember. His
recent video after that was he challenged them in court, and I'm sure, I don't remember who it was, but I'm sure he done one, but it's like he confronted them for taking stuff down.
It was from that video, yeah. It was from that particular video, but this was just like a side example in that video. I'm sure it was one of the guys from the Eagles. Could be totally wrong on that. But essentially, you know, Rick is going to be appearing in court soon, talking about copyright and talking about fair use and things like that, and advocating for his position, advocating for YouTubers and content creators, etc. And meanwhile, you've got this guy from the Eagles, whoever it happened to be, making videos and talking in court about copyright and fair use and things like this, and complaining and saying just how unfair it is. Did you know that there's 6 billion videos on YouTube and 85% of those contain music, and only to date only 6% of those are claimed. Think how much money is just being left on the table there. And then he just reels off this ridiculous statistic. He says something along the lines of, I employ 30 people. I have 30 people employed, and their entire job is a day in, day out, going through YouTube, finding people using my music and then claiming it. That's their entire job. And I just have to look at that and say, oh, poor fucking you. Oh, poor you. Like,
wish I could do that.
Yeah. Oh, no. Oh, this little YouTuber that doesn't make any money whatsoever and that brings relevance to my music and brings more people into my music. Oh no, they used a clip of my music. They did a live stream, and in the live stream they're talking about one of my songs and they use 8 seconds of it. Well, that's my video now. I've got to make all of the money all of the pennies that you might have made on that live stream. Like, fuck off, you unbelievably greedy cretins. Charge what you're worth. But it's like that Jeff Bezos thing that we were talking about with Tom Monda. Charge what you're worth. But when you earn X amount of money, you probably don't need to be like trying to rinse the system for even fucking more. When you have so much money, the thing I said about Jeff Bezos is Jeff Bezos has literally so much money that if he avoids $1 in tax, to save that dollar, to put that dollar in his astonishing amount of wealth, that dollar will go onto a pile, and for the rest of time, he will never, ever, ever need that dollar. He's never going to spend that dollar. He has more money than he could ever possibly spend. So why the fuck do you care about this one extra dollar? Greedy people, charge what you want. Stop rinsing everyone, though.
It's madness. I read an article the other day, and it was an outset, like a stream of tweets from a newspaper, actually. I want to say it was a British newspaper, but I can't remember exactly. And it was basically, they were reporting what we were talking about Jeff Bezos the other day, the 11 billion profit in a single day in 24 hours. Like, that's a world record. Yeah. And it just adds to his 112 billion worth or something. So they were like, right, we're going to try and spend Jeff Bezos' money here, right? So let's splurge out on everything we're talking about, right? And they took figures of what it would cost to end world hunger, what it would be to put everybody through proper scholarships, to buy every child in the world an ice cream, if he decided he wanted to have the most expensive car in the world, one for every single day of the week, but also special ones for events like Christmas and New Year and birthdays, right? But then he decided he wanted a yacht and he wanted yachts of the same calibre. The most expensive yacht in the world cost this, so we bought 15. And by the end of it, he still had something like 30 billion in wealth. And they're like, that's how ridiculous this is. This guy could literally cure all world hunger, all poverty, all homelessness. He could take a holiday for a month on this private island with 100 people and all of this, and like basically they just went through all the most expensive things that you could ever buy, and attributed as if Jeff Bezos had bought them, and then gave you like a countdown of what it would come off his balance, and he was still arguably unfathomably, unspendably rich. Like you physically couldn't spend all that without hoarding everything on earth.
I really enjoy that you described it as, and they described it as too, as broke records for the amount of profit made in a day. I think that record is the wrong term, because record is like sure, it's an acknowledgement, but I feel record should be positive. I just don't think that's positive. Like, he's got to take a step back at some point and go, that's too much. I could probably go to a country in Africa with a loaded machine gun and go on a murder spree of murder children that are starving. I'm going on a real dark tangent here, right? You
aren't half, man. I was like, where the fuck are you going with this?
I could kill 3,000 starving children in one day. That would probably be a record, right? But it's not a record. It's certainly not anything that you would publicise. It's not. I wouldn't come home and be like, well, killed an absolute record amount of starving children there. It's like, it doesn't compute.
Are you in the Conservative government?
It's only okay when I do it.
Ian Duncan Smith, what are you doing on the other side of that microphone?
Yeah. So
Jacob Rees-Mogg, stop it. Matt Hancock, get away from you.
That's we went off on a massive tangent. I get what you're saying. Massive tangent.
I get what you're saying. Unless you're on the absolute wrong websites, the wrong place on the internet, you wouldn't consider that kind of death tally any sort of good thing.
Yeah.
That action in general would not be a good thing, but there are certain sites that would probably celebrate that, sadly.
But yeah, just as a reminder, we were actually talking about Brittany Bowman, so go and check her video out. We also talked about Jeff Bezos and how unbelievably rich he is, having that amount of money. Can you imagine? But do you know what's even better than having that amount of money? This show has been brought to you by Ormsby Guitars. If you are unfamiliar with Ormsby and what they do, I would recommend you head on over to ormsbyguitars.com. Absolutely wonderful instruments made out of Australia by Perry Ormsby. You know, they focus on a lot of really interesting things, probably most notably the multi-scale thing. You can see a couple of them hanging behind my head. I am a big fan of the Goliath series. Having said that, I've also almost ordered myself a Hype over the years, and I think the thing that Ormsby do that, well, lots of companies have dabbled in, but they do a great job of it, is these runs of builds. You can go on their website now, check out the pre-order section of their website, and you will see a series of upcoming runs of guitar. You can get in on those with prepayment plans and really get yourself a nice, well-built instrument for an unbelievable price. So thanks to Ormsby Guitars for supporting the show. Go and check them out and let them know that we sent you. Thanks very much. And there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. Another Guitar Souls podcast comes to an end. As always, huge thank you to our friends over at Ormsby Guitars and you wonderful people for listening to and watching our show. If you'd like to support us, if you'd like to support us, there's a link in the description where you can check out our t-shirts and other various merchandise. Some of you actually own Guitar Souls mugs, which is quite cool. It's actually not. It's tea.
Ironic.
Terrible. Yeah.
Because you all are mugs. I'm only kidding.
Yeah.
Also, what? Tea is disgusting, did you just say?
Yeah. Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
I don't drink any hot drinks. Do you not know this?
No, I know that, but it doesn't make it disgusting. That makes you disgusting.
Mate, tea is
It's delicious.
Is leaf flavoured water.
Do you like mushrooms?
I do, yeah.
Shut the fuck up then. You're not allowed an opinion on how anything tastes.
Yeah. Would mushroom tea be acceptable? That's a thing, isn't
it? Different types of mushrooms, psilocybin ones.
Mushroom flavoured water, terrible. Leaf flavoured water, fantastic. I think the thing I find fascinating about tea is I'd love a time machine, like Bill and Ted style time machine, to go way back in time and find out how tea came about. You know what I mean? Who was just sitting there one day and went, I wonder what would happen if we made this water taste like those leaves. Just bizarre.
I don't think it's really bizarre. I think it's probably part and parcel of agriculture.
Yeah.
And like it would be normal of the times for people to be like rudimentary mortar and pestle and making drinks and salves and stuff like or whatever they call them, and then them being like not necessarily just like you drink that and it tastes good. Maybe they thought that had some sort of healing properties, or it was good for stuff like ginger tea is really good for settling your stomach, even though I hate the taste of ginger. So I have I've tried to drink ginger tea recently, and it's settled my stomach and then gave me the boke at the same time, which doesn't quite work.
I guess the thing that makes me giggle with it is, while things like tea absolutely took off, you look around you in the wild, somebody has tried every single thing that you can see. They've tried to consume it in every way humanly possible to see if there's any value to it. And cool. I remember being in primary school, actually, and there was this, I wish I could hear it again. It was like a satirical comedy, radio-style comedy sketch of somebody satirizing the idea of smoking cigarettes. And it was presented from a comedy perspective of, can you imagine someone coming back from America after having met the Indians and then ridiculing this idea of like grinding up these leaves and then putting them in some paper and then we just set fire to it, and then we just put it in our mouths and set fire to it, like to make it ridiculous, make it seem ridiculous. But also at the same time, when you take a step back, again, somebody came up with this idea of, see that thing there, it doesn't taste very good in water. What happens if we burn it and then just try and take in its spirit? Wonderful, the world. People, absolutely wonderful. But tea, absolutely not wonderful.
Aye, I disagree with you. But
I know.
We'll agree to disagree. That's fine.
I like coffee more. I don't drink it, but I like the smell of coffee. But leaf-flavoured water, no thank you. Coffee smells great. Anyway, Mike, any closing messages for our friends and family watching?
Ignore what Levi says. Tea's good. Other than that, just thanks again for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry if I've not been as animated as usual the last couple of weeks. When we have managed to record, these have been probably some of the longest periods I've went without feeling like I'm going to shit myself or be sick. The stomach cramps are just becoming normal now, which hopefully the omeprazole will get rid of.
Are you pregnant?
I wish.
Do you?
You don't think being the first pregnant, fully biological male would be amazing? Think how much money and fame I would have.
But think how wrecked your penis would be at the end of it.
How do you know I'm not birthing through my ass?
I think how wrecked your ass would be.
I might even get a cesarean.
Yeah, okay, fair point.
Do you know what I mean? I think you're being too narrow-minded here. I couldn't push a baby out my urethra.
Yeah, you could do anything.
Sometimes going for a piss hurts.
You could do anything if you say you
want. No, you physically can't. It doesn't stretch. Not that I've tried, but it's not the same as vagina.
Okay, fair.
Or the birthing canal. It's not designed for that, brother. Good try, though. Okay. We'll leave that there. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Look forward to seeing the comments. I actually really hope Keith gets in contact. I'd like to hear his point of view, because he was very eloquent when we spoke to him before from Essex Recording Studios regarding the Evanescence guitar, and just to see what how he's valued it and where it's came from, because he might have reached out to somebody else who values these guitars for big not retailers, for like the auction houses and stuff, and that might be what they've put the conservative value on it. So he might just be like, cool. It might just be a figure he's pulled out his arse. It might just be he's just looking for some more attention for the rest of his fleet, because people might look at that and go, 50 grand, you fucking mad, what else is he selling? And then see a guitar at 2 grand and go, well, actually.
Well, I've got to be honest. I'm really glad that you waited an hour to give us that insight, Mike.
Shut up.
Until next time.
Goodbye, fuckers. Especially Levi.